Red Wings fans, stand up. Yeah, we gonna throw them wings up, wings up, wings up. Show the league that this is our time. Let's make the city proud. We gon' win the Stanley Cup, Stanley Cup, Stanley Cup. After that we gonna party. We gon' show everybody. We show them all around the world. We show them all around the world. We show them all around the world. We gon' throw them wings up. We gon' throw them wings up.
Okay, so we'll get started with Justin Rose from Channel 7.
Hey, Steve. Hope everything's well for you and your family. I'm just curious, what have you been doing during this time to pass some of it? I know that you've been waiting to hear from the NHL and what to do and whatnot. I'm curious how you've been passing the time during this whole entire thing.
Steve, can you unmute your microphone?
Sorry, guys. Yeah, actually, Justin, we've been quite busy. Between reviewing last season, having different hockey department meetings all done, over the internet, virtually, preparing for the draft, preparing for free agency, doing some budgeting for next season. We found ourselves pretty busy throughout the week, and so it's my time hockey-wise has been occupied regularly, constantly.
If I can follow up on that real quick, is it maybe some stuff that you could pay more attention to, give a little bit more credence to, where you don't have the hustle and the bustle of a regular season going on while you're trying to do that?
Well, most of the things we're doing are end of season stuff that we would do between the end of the season and July 1. Whether we do amateur scouting meetings, pro scouting meetings at the end of the year, meet with players, meet with coaches, discuss different things. These are all things we would do at the end of the year, and that's kind of what we've done. If anything, we've had more time to do them. Spend more time, whether that's good or bad. In some cases, probably good. Some probably doesn't matter, but we certainly had more time to do it. And so all in all, I think it's been productive for us under the circumstance.
Next question from Max Boltman with The Athletic.
Hey, Steve. Could you walk us through what the amateur scouting department has done differently, how they've approached the draft over the last 10 weeks, and if you feel you'll be as prepared as you would be for a normal draft?
Max, we'll be prepared as best we can be for the draft. We don't. It doesn't look like we'll get to physically spend some time with the kids. We don't have the luxury of being at the combine to get the physical testing results from that. We'll be as prepared as we can be.
All right, we'll go to Brad Galley, Channel 7.
Steve, just a couple of, big housekeeping items. The first with February, you said you had no plans to make a change at the head coaching job. I'm wondering if that remains now as the season's concluded, if you tend to bring Jeff back next year. And then the captaincy has been something that's been talked about with a lot of Red Wings fans. Have you made a decision if you'll name a captain now or in the near future?
We will name, the plan is to name a captain prior to the start of our next season. I can't really give you a timeline on when we'll do that, but that is the intention. And my comments or my remarks and thoughts on the head coach, Jeff Blashill, haven't changed from February.
We will go to Ted Coughlin with the Detroit News.
Hey, Steve, do you hear me?
I do, Ted, yeah.
Well, just following up on that, does that mean you're bringing him back then? Or
that's what I said. I guess that's what I inferred, and I have no plans of making a coaching change at this time.
What did you think of the job that he did this season under the circumstances?
I think Jeff has done a good job. I think it's been a difficult position. In his tenure here, the Red Wings are in a rebuild and have been for a while. And for the last 2-3 trade deadlines, the team has traded valuable players, good players for future assets. And Jeff has with his head held high and diligently worked hard. Done a good job in coaching this team in a difficult situation throughout that. And I think it's, as I said in February, I think it's unfair to judge him based on our record at this time. And quite frankly, we need to improve the team to get a true, for anybody to truly critique or assess the coaching staff. We need to improve the team.
Hey, Steve, would you like to come back? Would you guys have liked to come back to finish those 11 games or whatnot?
Yeah, we would have liked to if it worked. Most of the players that I spoke with, said they would like to come back and play. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way for us. But yeah, we would have liked to have played. Would it have made sense? And that I'm not sure, but we would have liked to have played. Yes.
All right, we'll go to Mike Stone, 97.1 The Ticket.
How you doing, Steve? I'm just curious. Most of the reaction from Bettman's announcement yesterday concerning the lottery was kind of, how does a team like Toronto, if they would lose, have even though it's minuscule, a chance to get the #1 pick or even 2 or 3? And your reaction when you found out what the format of the lottery was going to be?
We weren't really, at first I heard of it was yesterday, mixed feelings about it. We knew the league was going to do whatever they felt they had to do to make it work. So it is what it is. We're going to do, we're excited about, obviously we'd all love to get the highest pick we possibly can, us included. And we're confident where we're picking, we're going to be happy with the player that we get.
Thank you.
Next question, Trevor Thompson, Fox Sports Detroit. Hey, Trevor, you muted? Go ahead and ask your question.
There we go. My bad. Hi, Steve, and everybody out there. It's good to see you guys. I hope that you're well. Steve, I've got a couple of questions related to returning to play. And hockey, above maybe other sports, is very dependent and thrives on its interaction with the fans. Guys get camps, they give away their sticks. They're always interacting with kids in that way. What is the league doing at that level going forward? What have they talked about as far as restrictions and guidelines in that area? And how do you think maybe the absence of that with social distancing might affect even the fabric of the game and how that might grow at the grassroots level?
I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer that, Trevor. It's unusual circumstance. Things aren't going to be the same, it looks like, for a while. I can't tell you how long before we're playing in front of full buildings, before we're playing in front of any fans. That's still an unknown. I've had a chance to watch the Bundesliga on TV a little bit of the golf on TV recently without fans. It's certainly an important part of the atmosphere of the game. It's an important part of all of sports. Without fan support, professional leagues in the long run won't thrive, but we got to do the best we can in the interim. I think it's really important for every industry, every sport, which is an industry as well, to get back to work as soon as possible under any safe circumstance that we can, and any viable circumstance we can, and do the best we can until it gets back to normal. So as far, we're all going to be doing everything online. We're all going to be doing things virtually. We're going to be doing it on television, and people get creative, and there'll be interesting and positive things that come out of this mess, I guess. And I'm not sure what they are, but people are very bright. People are very have ingenuity. I'm not sure what the right form of that word should be here, but people will come up with great ideas that make it better and will help us get through it, and we'll improve because of it in the long run.
And what is the league talking about as far as returning to play and guys in their off-season workouts, whether they can use trainers or it has to be through the team or they can work in groups, or what's being talked about as far as that goes and return to play throughout the off-season as we near the next camp?
Well, everything is kind of moving, almost like changing daily. But right now, the league, and I'm sure you had a chance to read it, the plans or the guidelines for phase 2, opening up our locker rooms to voluntary workouts. That's the next step. Our situation is different than a team that is preparing to play in the 2014 playoff. Obviously, we won't be a part of that. So in light of yesterday's announcements from the league, we'll kind of take into account how we want to proceed as far as phase 2 in opening up our room. How many players are in town? How many players want to use the facility, can use the facility? So we'll follow along with the league's guidelines. We'll follow our local and state guidelines as well, and actually federal guidelines. So ultimately, assuming we can open our room, then we'll decide, does it make sense to do that for our players? Are enough of them here? Do they want to come down? So we'll try and accommodate our guys the best we can, that they can prepare in the off season in a safe manner and a manner that is most suitable to them and makes the best use of their time and to facilitate what we're going to use the off season for.
All right, and last thing for me, Steve, is just the young guys in GR and some of the young guys on your team, the season being shortened. How do you think that might impact their overall development, not having a chance for a playoff run down in GR and just playing out the rest of the season, and the value of those reps that they may have missed?
Well, again, we would have loved to have finished, everybody wanted to finish the season. And, it's on, our younger players, we were hoping we were in a good playoff race in Grand Rapids. They weren't in, but at the time, but we thought they would benefit from the stretch drive. We thought, getting into the playoffs would be a great thing for them. For everybody, not playing isn't a good thing. I don't see any positive in not playing as far as your development in your career at any stage, but there's nothing we can do about it, and we'll work our way around it, and we'll figure out through the off season here how we best prepare for coming out of this. So I know a lot of the younger kids that are in Europe are over there. They've some of their guidelines in their communities or in their countries, their cities that they live in, they're able to work out with their teams. I think some of them are starting to get back on the ice, so they'll be able to train and skate and on ice and off ice to be ready for whenever we start back up. Again, we're all going to have to make the best of the situation and figure out a way to be ready when we open up. And it goes without saying, it's not the ideal circumstance, but we'll make the best of it, and we'll come out of it and move on like everyone is.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
All right, next question, Helene St. James, the Detroit Free Press.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Good, Helene. How are you?
Good. Just going back to Jeff, when did you have a conversation with him about his future, that you were not going to make a change?
I don't recall saying I had a conversation with him about his future.
But did you have one then, or was there just...
No.
Did you?
He's here.
Did you reassure him at some point that you were not going to make a change, or...
We've never specifically had a conversation. He's the head coach of the team. I'm sure he heard my comments in February. We've talked about our team. We've talked very openly about our plan, what we're trying to do, where we're at presently, where we're going. And we intend to, here in the off season, discuss our team moving forward.
And I recall last April when you were hired at your news conference, you said you wanted time to observe. Can you kind of, I guess, go over some of the main points of what you have observed here in the first year?
Just in general, or any specific area, Helene?
Just kind of in general. I mean, was there anything that took you by surprise, or anything much different from what you kind of were expected, or?
You get to learn, you learn a lot about the players. You get to know them personally. You get to know them better. We're assessing them at every, whether it's a veteran, potential unrestricted free agent that we're debating on re-signing, or where are we at with our young guys. So you get to know them on the ice, off the ice. Are they a part of the plan moving forward? Are they not? It goes for everybody in the entire organization. I'd say maybe if I use the word observe, it's more observe and assess. Really, that's kind of my job, to decide, okay, how can we improve the team, and what areas do we need to improve the team? What areas do we need to make changes? So we've spent the entire year doing that from top to bottom, and we're trying to run a good program to develop our young players, to rebuild and get the team back on track, which I've said is going to take time. And so I honestly, I don't know that I'm really shocked or whatnot by anything. I didn't know really what our record was going to be going in, whether it was going to be what it was, better or worse, I'm not sure. We felt, it was going to be a stretch to be a playoff team, and we weren't a playoff team, obviously. So, I'm not totally shocked by anything. It's just I've learned a lot about our organization. I feel I have a good handle on what the next steps that need to be taken. And ultimately, we need to continue to draft, and we need to draft well and run a good development program to get these young players to fulfill their potential. That's the plan. That's the most important thing, and ultimately the only way we're going to get it turned around.
Lastly, are the coaching staff staying the same? No changes for the assistants either, or?
No, really, that's probably, you'll get an opportunity to talk to Jeff about that. He and I will discuss the off season, the plans for the off season, and ultimately, where I may have some say in it, that would be his determination as to whether he wants to make any changes on his staff.
Thanks.
Next question, Daniela Bruce, Red Wings TV.
I was muted. Sorry about that. Hi, Steve and everybody else. Good to see everybody. So this hasn't been an easy task for the NHL to come up with a plan to return to play. So from what you were involved in, what was that process like, and what were the discussions like leading up to the final decision?
Really wasn't involved in any of it. Got to listen in on some calls up the league. The league regularly from the pause has had calls with the Board of Governors, which I've been able to listen in on. So getting updates from the league to keep us apprised of how the situation is progressing from week to week. We had some general managers calls early on in the process, again, for the same information purposes. And, haven't, had one yesterday, but had not had a call in some time. So really was not really involved in any part of the process. It was more done at a higher level league-wise.
Next question, John Neo at the Detroit News.
Hey, Steve, a question on, I guess, the timeline going forward. Free agency, restricted free agents, do you know yet exactly what the timeline is for that? Are contracts sliding? Is that an option? How is that going to work? Do you know yet?
John, no, I don't know yet. We've got some critical dates coming up for qualifying offers for restricted free agents, European free agents, or European unsigned draft picks coming up, July 1 free agency. All those are, I think, a work in progress that the league is doing or is working on with the Players Association in conjunction with restarting the league and playoffs, working on sliding those dates that make it work for everybody, the players, the teams, the league. So that's a work in progress, and we don't know exactly those dates yet.
Does that apply to coaches as well? And I guess the other question then is, are you picking up the option on Blashill's contract?
We don't really know. Again, that's been something discussed. It's more a question if you get an opportunity to talk to the league. I'm sure at some point we'll get guidance or instruction from them. There's potentially extending player contracts if we're going to extend, which it looks like is going to happen, extend the 1920 season beyond pretty much every contract play for everyone for the most part expires June 30th, and if we're going to play beyond June 30th, then those contracts have to slide, I guess, or be extended. I don't know necessarily how that applies to teams like ourselves who will not be a part of that, if part of the playoff, potentially playing beyond June 30. So I don't know how that applies yet. We're kind of, we'll look to the league to get a little bit more guidance on that. But to answer your second question right now, without giving you any details, because personally, really, it's nobody's business but ours, is, as I said, I plan to have Jeff. He's going to be the head coach of the team, and we'll do what's necessary to make sure he's the head coach of the team.
Last one from me, sorry. In terms of just this gap, 8 months possibly or whatever, is your hope that you could get the team together in some form or fashion later this summer for, I don't know what you'd call it, but just to have that group together?
Yeah, again, like a lot of this is happening. We learned yesterday exactly kind of what the plan is. We had an idea potentially of what it was, and that's a question that has come up lately. Okay, if you're not in it, what are we going to do for the next, who knows until we start? And, it's something we will discuss. Can we do mini camps? Can we, I don't know, do some other things that non-playoff teams to collectively or individually as teams? Again, we're all limited by local restrictions, federal restrictions, state restrictions, and it's different for everyone. So ideally, we'd like to get together at some point sooner. If it's beneficial for our players, for our coaches to do something, we would like to do that. But at this time, that's not really feasible for us, or we don't have that opportunity. So we'll wait, and we'll look at every way possible that we can to, between now and whenever we start up, to do our best to make sure the players are training, working on their skills, working on their conditioning, working on everything. And then as a team to be in the best possible position we can to come out of this and start up for the 2021 season.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, next question, Larry Lage, the Associated Press.
Steve, how are you?
I'm good, Larry. How are you?
I'm well. Given your ties to Detroit, your experience, I wonder if you could all give us your perspective, if empathy is a word, but it's, for the Detroit pro sport teams, it's a tough time. And also for the businesses that rely on your games, whether you guys win or lose, the people are making money, and obviously Tigers the same. And, just your sense of, kind of the tough time Detroit is in from a pro sports and pandemic restaurant business that rely on the sports here in the Motor City.
Well, I certainly empathize. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Sympathize with everyone in Detroit and Michigan for the situation that we're in and the economic situation we're in the pandemic. As far as the sports teams go, I came here in 1983. The Tigers won the World Series in '84. They've had their ups and downs. They've been in multiple World Series since then, playoffs. They're rebuilding again now. I've watched the Pistons win championships. I've watched, the Red Wings. We go through our ups and downs, and I've watched the Lions, and we're all hoping for the Lions. And I had some great years with Barry and when Wayne Fonts was coach, and some exciting playoff times and seasons. And so it's all cyclical, and we're going to get back there one day. And that's what's exciting about sports. I believe all four teams will get back on top at some point, and that we are in these situations now. We're going to work our way through and get there. One of the most exciting things for me returning to Detroit last year was the energy and the growth and the development in the city of downtown Detroit. My kids who would be going down there would always tell me about it, what's going on in Detroit. I'd read about it. And then, in the last year being down there, I thought it was, fantastic atmosphere, what's happening in Detroit, and really look forward and enjoy going downtown. This is a major setback, which is probably a gross understatement. But Detroit will survive, and we will come out of it. And it's a very resourceful state and a resourceful city, and we will get through it. And we will look back on time and be stronger and better for it.
Thank you.
Next question will be Craig Custance of The Athletic.
Steve, I'm just curious, kind of piggybacking on John's questions. Do you anticipate different rules in terms of roster construction for the 7 non-playoff teams to kind of let you guys start conducting your business versus the teams that are in the playoff?
Off-season rules or for next year?
Yeah, kind of planning the roster for next year and making moves.
I don't think so. Again, anything is possible, really, but I kind of anticipate us sitting watching. Hopefully we do play the playoffs and things go well. That means the world is improving and we are able to get this in. And then I anticipate sometime once the season is completed, having maybe an abbreviated but relatively normal off season at that point. That gives us all time to plan for next year. The draft, free agency, sign our players. Off the top of my head, once the season's completed, I don't know that there'll be a real need other than to adjust dates. Knowing what the salary cap will be, I think we'll work under a normal circumstance after that, but I don't know for certain.
And you kind of alluded to no combine. Like they wouldn't bring a combine back before the draft.
I don't anticipate that happening. I suppose it's possible, but at this stage, I don't anticipate that happening. We don't know, like all these kids that are coming in for the draft. Some of them are going to college. Some of them are in Europe. They're all over the world, and all their circumstances difficult. And I think it would be hard to plan a combine to put that all together. So as of now, we're going to be on the assumption, that we will prepare for the draft and not have a combine.
So along those lines, I would just be curious what that, how you guys have simulated having, a staff in the room talking to these kids. Is it Zoom meetings like this, or how has that process played out for you guys?
We've done, like, all of our meetings have been done virtually on whether it be on this format or another format. And, they've worked pretty well. I don't think we want to work remotely forever. I think human contact and being together as a company, as a staff is important, but it's worked reasonably well, and we've been able to do what we need to do, and the discussions have been good, and everyone has been focused, and so we're very comfortable with how the meetings have gone. They've worked as well as as they would have in person, because we've been together for a while. We know one another. The staff isn't unfamiliar. It's worked well. The unfortunate part or the negative is we haven't had a chance to sit in a room with the kids and watch them jump up and down at the combine and whatnot to get more information.
All right. Next question, Dana Wakiji with DetroitRedWings.com.
Hi, Steve. Nice to see you and everyone.
Thank you. You as well.
I was just curious. Obviously, you knew Dylan Larkin before you came back to Detroit, but now that you've been around him in a much more, close setting, what were your impressions of him, and what do you see from him going forward?
I didn't know him very well. I don't think I was at the combine his draft year when he was selected by the Red Wings, so I didn't get to meet him then. Obviously know the player very well, or knew him very well as an opponent and as a prospect, watching him through his time at Michigan and the U18 program. And then, him playing for the Red Wings while I was in Tampa. Gotten to know him. He's a dedicated professional. He's a hard worker. He's very competitive. He's a very good hockey player. And I've enjoyed my conversations with him and discussions about hockey, about our team and whatnot throughout the course of the season. So I'm very impressed with him. I think being a member of the Red Wings and improving this team is very, very important to him, and he takes it seriously. So he's an excellent player for us. He's a very important player. He's a great leader, and he's dedicated and mentally strong and committed. So I've been very impressed, really getting to know him over the course of the year.
Next question, Bob Winelski of the Detroit News.
Steve, how are you?
I'm good, Wojo. How are you?
Good, thank you. A year ago at this time, or about this time when you took over, you talked about obviously observing and assessing, no big moves, big splashes, let's see what we got. A year later, now that you've seen what you have and it was a rough season, do you view it differently? Do you view, I don't know, you need to make any kickstart moves, whether it's free agency or a trade? 1 year later, has your level of aggressiveness changed at all?
I'd say maybe slightly. Ultimately, the plan is to draft, hopefully draft well, hopefully run a good development program, have as competitive as a team as we can at this time, to help the Dylan Larkins, the Anthony Mantas, Tyler Bertuzzi's, all of that young core, help them get better, try and improve our team. But it's going to take time. I think I don't want to go into free agency to make a splash. We're going to look to make sensible signings that help improve the team, the right type of people, the right type of player, and then ultimately the contract has to work for us as well. So yeah, we're prepared to do anything we can in free agency, but it's not a get a player at all costs. That's not the plan. We're trying to build a good team over time, and the reality is I think it's very difficult to do that with free agency. To get those elite players, if in fact they're there, you got to spend a lot of money for a long time, and I don't know if we're in a market for those types of players at this time. That's the reality. And if a player wants to play in Detroit, we're certainly going to explore every opportunity, but the deal has to work for both parties. So I guess if I answer your question, would we be a little bit more aggressive in free agency? Maybe so. That doesn't mean going out and spending 7-year max contracts, just to get a player. But we're certainly going to have some roster spots to fill. We're going to need to fill them. We won't be able to fill them with all of our younger players. So we're trying to improve the team, but ultimately we're not trying to do everything overnight, because that can really handcuff you at times. We're trying to use free agency wisely.
Just a quick follow-up, and this sounds like a loaded question, but it's not. Is there any area on this team that you think doesn't need help? You know what I'm saying? Like, is there any area that you think you're set or have made enough progress, or is everything wide open?
I think we need to improve in every area. Quite frankly, we need help in every area. We need to score more goals. We need to improve defensively. Like, we need to improve in net. So no, I think we need to get better in every aspect, and it's going to take time to do that. And I'm confident that we will, and I think we'll see improvement next season. I can't tell you what that translates to into wins and losses, but we will try to address all of those things.
And last thing for me, how big of a priority your restricted free agents, guys like Mantha, Bertuzzi, how big of a priority will that be right away, whenever you can do it?
Yeah, they're restricted free agents. We will get them signed. To what term and AAV remains to be seen. But those are some of our best young players. They're restricted free agents. We're not going to let them go anywhere. We'll get deals done with them. And I can't tell you that's a week from now or in sometime in the off season. We will. I've kind of been waiting to see what the off season was going to be like, how this season was going to end, and then get as much clarity on next season as I possibly can as well. But our intention, and I can't say that goes for all of our restricted free agents, but we have to make some decisions on some of them. Are we going to qualify them? Do we want to bring them back? Do we want to look at other players for those spots? So. But we will prioritize certain guys, and some of them will be signed. It's just a question of for how long and how much.
Next question will be Art Regner from DetroitRedWings.com.
Well, hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm glad that everyone's safe and healthy. Steve, I don't think I've ever seen you in this much Red Wings gear before in my life. Very nice look. With that said, I am kind of curious about the AHL. And I know you follow it closely because the Red Wings have so many top prospects down there. They may not come back if they can't play in front of fans. So then do you expect that your roster is going to have to be expanded because quite possibly you may not have an AHL franchise to put your prospects into?
Yeah, well, I guess, Art, that's certainly a possibility that the AHL wouldn't play. I don't know that I would say that's definitive yet, but that is certainly possible, and we'll figure out what we do at that point if they didn't play. I would say, Art, I think it's premature to say they're not going to play right now, but it is a possibility. And then we have to figure out as a league, where do all our prospects go? Well, I would say to you, if that does happen, we'll figure something out.
When you look at it, when you look at the whole big picture, I think officially as of yesterday, the Red Wings seem to be one of 7 teams in Phase 5, which is next year. Let's look towards next year. You did sign the Swedish player Bromia. Can you tell us a little bit about him? And is he one of these late bloomers that we hear about?
Well, I had a chance. I didn't get to see him play live this year. Watched a lot of his games on video. He's a good skater. He's a left winger. Has good skills. He's a worker, very competitive with good hockey sense. Was he a late bloomer? He's probably had his best year or two in the Swedish league in the last year. He's become a real good player in that league. We're hopeful that he can make the transition to play in the NHL. But I like his hockey sense. I like his competitiveness. He's got, he's not a Henrik Zetterberg or Pavel Datsyuk type of finesse player. He's a worker with some skill and can contribute, make plays, and finish a little bit. We'll see if that translates to the NHL. But, obviously with Håkan and Thomas Karlsson, our scouts in Sweden, they know the young man well, like the majority of the Swedes, a high character, great teammate. We're hopeful that he can make our roster and inject a little bit more offense, but be a good two-way player for us.
Stephen, one final question. Will you have to petition the league? Would you like to at least get ice in at the Belfort Center and have the opportunity to bring this team together?
Well, I don't know that we need to petition the league yet. We've got at one, I hear what you're saying about going right to Phase 5, but we've got to deal with Phase 2 coming up here and getting our players, the ones that are in town, give them an opportunity to train. Like, these guys are athletes. Majority of them really want to train. They like to do it. It's in their blood. They need to do it. So right now they're doing it at home in their basement, in their backyard, down the street or whatnot. The next step is to provide them a good environment to do that. And if we can do that at Little Caesars Arena on the practice ice, that would be the next step. We got to find, like, our guys are all over the place. Some are in Europe and they're in a good environment in Europe that's more conducive to training than it today, or at least for the time being, than it is bringing them back here. So again, we've got the Phase 2 instructions, and now we kind of know what the landscape looks like for the foreseeable future. We're in the process of figuring out, should we open up Belfort? Does it make sense for the players? Can we do it with, city ordinances and whatnot? We're looking at all that now, and then we'll just progress kind of on a weekly basis.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
No problem, Art.
All right, everyone. This is going to be the last question. It'll be Nick Kotzanika with NHL.com.
Hey, Steve. Hope you're well. You touched on this a bit, but my concern is the long layoff and the development of your young players. What do you say to them, to keep this from affecting their development mentally and physically? Like, what do you want them doing between now and whenever you start up again? How do you want them to approach this?
Well, they got to do everything they can. I think motivated athletes, motivated hockey players are going to find a way to train. They're going to find a way once they can, once rinks open up, they'll figure out a way to get back on the ice. Sean Horkoff and Dan Cleary, who oversee our kind of player, who do oversee our player development department, have stayed. They're limited to their contact with the players as well, but have stayed in contact with them from day one of the pause, and will continue to do so to give them guidance, to help out in any way they can, get resources for them, whether it's equipment or instruction to train with. But the young guys that are motivated, they're going to figure out a way and find a way to get it done. And we're going to, part of it is we'll learn who really wants to be a hockey player. And guys that want to train are going to figure it out. Guys that want to get better and improve are going to figure it out. And we're going to provide the resources to do that. The ones who truly don't are going to find a way, and they've got as good a reason as they're ever going to have of not being able to train right now. So a lot of the onus is on the kids' motivation. And again, Hork and Sean and Dan are doing a good job staying on top of it. Our strength coaches here in Detroit trying to reach out to all our players to give them guidance and instruction, and to, if they can, get whatever equipment to their homes, get it to their homes and go. But the kids in Europe that having talked to a couple of them and talking with Sean and Dan, these kids over there, some of them are able to train with their teams depending on the country they're in. They're able to work out with their former teams, which is great. I think they're getting ready to get back on the ice in some situations. So, apart from, every team in the NHL, in that aspect is kind of in the same boat. Obviously 24 teams are going to play. That's a bit of a setback for us, or a challenge for us, but we'll overcome it. And like I said, we're going to have to get creative, and we're going to have to figure out ways within the laws, within the guidelines to get the work done, and we will.
This may be premature, but I'll ask anyway. Like a player like Seider, for example, if there's uncertainty about the AHL and he could play in Germany, would you have him play in Germany? Would you send some other players to Europe so they can play?
Well,
just because you have a long-term view.
I without knowing if we can or can't do that, those are certainly options we would have to. We want the kids playing if they can play. We want all of our players playing, for that matter. If they can't, if the NHL isn't running, if the American Hockey League isn't running, if the East Coast League isn't running, again, they're their own leagues, and they're going to make decisions. I think they'll confer with the National Hockey League, but ultimately they're their own leagues, and they'll make their decisions accordingly. To the extent we can, yes, we want our guys playing wherever that may be, preferably in Detroit and in Grand Rapids and in Toledo, and if not, we'll certainly look at all other options viable for them to play.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. That's all we have time for today. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Steve, thank you for your time. Hopefully, we'll all get through this and be able to see everyone soon.
We'll see you all at the start of 2021.